Welcome to the Successful Encore Career, a podcast of Employment for Seniors. I'm Brett Johnson. This episode is brought to you by Nationwide Insurance, Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging, and Innosource. And with me is Executive Director of Employment for Seniors, Carol Ventresca.
How are you doing today, Brett?
I'm fantastic.
Wonderful. We are all looking to keep moving along in our job search. And today we have a special guest, Sharon Hamersley, the resume coach, but also the workshop facilitator for Employment for Seniors, who's going to talk to us about researching employers. So I called Sharon and I said, I'm always telling people to research employers, but they have no clue what I'm saying. So let's talk about steps that include that and why is it important? We need to understand who an employer is, what they do. The last thing that a job applicant should say to an employer is, what do you do? They need to do some work on their own. So today, Sharon is going to give us some tips on how to do that employer searching. And I just want to thank Sharon for joining us. She's been with us many, many times on these podcasts and spending a lot of time putting some materials together. So we appreciate your time, Sharon. Thank you.
You are quite welcome.
So give us an overview of the types of resources that are available to job seekers.
Well, there are actually several different types to narrow down your career choices and determining what types of positions and what companies are a good fit for your skills and experience. There are three general categories that I want to talk about today in terms of this. First of all, company research, and that's information about the company, the location, the management, the financials, things like that. Then there's also job research. Some people say, for instance, well, I can do any job, but that's not really a good strategy for finding a job at all. So you want to do research on what jobs are available and what types of companies have those jobs and are posting them. And then third, and I think this is actually a really important category, and that is what I call job fit research. What I mean by that is answering the question, what jobs are a good fit for my skills and experience so that I understand where I fit into the world of work.
So that goes back to understanding what your skills and experiences are and what you bring to the table.
Yes, exactly.
Before you even get into this, understanding who you are.
Yes.
Well, we often talk about the way to do a job search is not just to do looking for postings, checking websites, checking Indeed or Ohio Means Jobs or whatever, and to actually look at the companies. But now you're really bringing us a third look, and that is, let's really look at the jobs and how my skills are matching the jobs. Is that right?
Yes,
okay.
That's correct.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, let's look at each of those categories, Sharon, and let's get started with the first one, just company research.
Company research can be conducted on a number of different levels. First of all, there are two great resources that are probably available. At least one of them will be available through your public library. They are Mergent, and that's MERGENT for folks who want to know how to spell that, and then Reference USA. They are business research databases, and the libraries actually have subscriptions to these so that you can use them for free. You can use their advanced search function. You can narrow down companies by their geographic location, their line of business, their number of employees, and any other information that you might want to get about some companies, a group of companies in a particular line of business or in a particular area, or about a single company that you really have an interest in. If you don't know how to use these resources, just go to your local public library and ask to speak to the reference librarian, and I'm sure that they will gladly show you how to use these resources. So these business databases are a great way to get a lot of information about companies. For instance, you can ask the question, well, okay, so I'm interested in being, let's say I'm interested in being a driver for a senior center. If you go to one of these databases, you can ask the reference librarian to show you a list of all of the senior centers in your area. And I bet you there are a lot more than you think there are.
Sharon, let me kind of add a one little thing in here to this. And there are some resources that are a little harder to use, but Ohio Means Jobs has lots and lots of information on their database if you're in the state of Ohio that could be helpful. And it gives the list of employers, that kind of thing. Also, the Bureau of Labor Statistics for the federal government will also give you projections of who's hiring in that industry over the next period of time. And I think it's a year period of time. Locally in Ohio, that office is the Labor Market Information Office, which is part of the Job and Family Services program. So again, I use those, but they can be tough to navigate. You really have to kind of stick with it, but there is a lot of good information there too.
Yes, I think that would be particularly helpful if you're considering 2 or 3 different types of positions and you want to know which positions are really in demand. I think that would be a great way.
And because the federal government requires businesses in their reporting programs to say what they expect to be doing in terms of hiring. So how many did they hire this year? How many do you expect to hire next year? So then they get some projections on what's going on, and oftentimes you'll see those as press releases coming out from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So that information comes from Ohio through Labor Market Information, goes to BLS nationally. So again, to our listeners, it can be done. You just have to be persistent and patient through their websites.
So another type of company research that you can and actually should do, and this is especially important if you're in the application process. Every single company that you apply to, you need to go to their company website. And you say, okay, so what information am I looking for on their website? You need information about the history of the company, the mission and the vision of the company, the leadership, the products and services. And if the company is publicly traded, they have to post their financial information. And I would take a good look at that because I think that's really important so that you know what their financial position is. Even if they're hiring a lot, their financials may not be great, and on down the road, that could impact your job at that company. So, what you're looking for is, is this a good fit for me, especially around, what's the company history? How did they get to this point? And then around their mission and vision and values. Is the company, are their mission and vision and values aligned with your personal mission and vision and values? And I think that that's really important to consider, both when you're doing general company research, but especially when you are actually actively in job search and maybe thinking of applying to a company. And don't forget to go back there if they call you in for an interview to refresh your memory so that you aren't asking questions like Carol said, so what does your company do?
Right, exactly. Well, and financial information is not easy. You pull those annual reports and oh my gosh, they can be really complicated. One of the things I always tell clients to do is to look at press releases on a company's website. So the press release may break down that annual financial information a little bit more for you if you don't have an accounting background to read those, but also it'll give you that notion of what the culture is and what projects they're doing. And it may even be, what nonprofits do they support? So you kind of get an idea as what's important to that company and the people who work there.
Yes, exactly. And then third, company research. This is from the other end of things. there are employer review sites. The most well-known one is Glassdoor. There's another one called Great Places to Work, which is also pretty good. These sites generally provide an employee perspective on the company. Although employers are out there trying to manage their image, which I fully understand, and I definitely know that they need to do, but these are employees talking about their experience with that company, whether they're currently working there or whether they have worked there in the past. The only thing I would say about this type of review is that just like for any other review, you have to take it with a bit of a grain of salt because the employee who is not satisfied with their experience is probably more likely to post something to Glassdoor than the employee who is satisfied with their experience in the company.
Right. Is that all anonymous? So you
yes.
can't even, you can't even do any checking to make sure it's a real employee or former employee.
Glassdoor and Great Places to Work validate before their reviews before you actually can post it. They make sure. Well, they try to make sure you're a real person.
Sure.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So let's then talk about some job research.
So the obvious place here is job boards. Okay. So, all of the major job boards are great resources for researching the types of jobs that companies are currently posting. So you can go out there and look on all the job boards by company, by area. You can cut this as many different ways as you want. The information you're looking for is a specific company posting a specific type of job, but what jobs are out there and what jobs are the jobs in my field and what skill sets are employers looking for so that you have a good idea of what the match is between the type of job that you think you're looking for and on the other side, the type of skill sets and experiences that the employers think they're looking for. So what's the match there? So I will now increasingly, I have to say LinkedIn is also a job board. And I've actually we already have a podcast about LinkedIn and looking for a job through LinkedIn. So I would encourage you to go back and review that in terms of researching companies and researching jobs. So your goal using the big job boards is to set up job alerts so that when a job comes up that looks like it's a job that you would be interested in and qualified for, that you can do some more research about that specific job. And then you can go back and do some specific research about the company too. So these are all actually kind of intertwined. It's not you do this first, you do this second, you do this third. It's more a matter of going through and researching. Okay, so I see this particular job at this particular company that's of interest. You go back and you do some company research as well.
I'm sorry, Sharon, I want to ask you a question about this before we get off this topic. With the big boards, is it fair to say that oftentimes employers go on there and they're fishing for resumes? And so they're just putting a wide net and trying to catch everybody they can who creates a profile on those job boards. And how does an individual keep from getting caught up in, every insurance agent office in the country?
Yes, that is a common problem that people face. And it's mostly not so much employers who are looking for employees, but companies who are looking for independent contractors, people that want to start a business.
Right.
And they will send you, and you do get a lot of those. My recommendation is that with the exception of LinkedIn, where you really do need really good and complete information, that on the other job boards, you just put really minimal information out there. And maybe don't even post a resume, because really what you're looking to do is you're looking to connect with companies who are really interested in connecting with you. And unfortunately, for some of the big job boards, that's exactly what they're doing, or some companies on those big job boards are doing. They're just casting out a wide net and basically spamming people, I think.
Oh, absolutely. My resume isn't out there any place on any job board, and I get calls every day saying, "Oh, we're calling you about the resume that you sent us, blah, blah, blah," and it's just, who knows why that happened, but you do have to be careful.
Yes, I think that's generally a good thing, just kind of as a personal security measure, that you don't post a lot of personal information about yourself, and that you keep it professional, for sure.
You and I have talked a little bit about not putting too much detail in terms of contacts on resumes.
Yes.
So definitely on those profiles that you're creating.
Yes, you want to put as little information as possible. People can get a hold of you, but if they really want to. But, I think that you do have to be cautious.
So a resume with just an email address is okay.
Is perfectly okay.
Right. No address, no phone
number, no nothing. Yeah. Email, it can always land in you just put it as spam, and then you'll stop hearing from them, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So, and then the job boards and the job postings that are on them are very handy, and we've talked about this previously too, to make sure that the correct keywords are going into your resume, into your cover letter, so that when you actually go to apply for jobs, that because many times the first look that you get is by some sort of automated scanning software, that the correct vocabulary, the keywords that are common to your profession, are in that resume. So
great. So can I give a plug again for Ohio Means Jobs as a job board? They treat us well here at Employment for Seniors, so we want to be respectful of them. But also, in terms of a job board, Employment for Seniors job list. Now, you do have to be a client, but we promise we won't spam you.
That sounds like a great plan. And I do have to highly recommend the Employment for Seniors job board, because the employers that post with Employment for Seniors have pretty much signed on the dotted line that they are going to consider mature candidates.
Absolutely.
Just as much as they would consider anybody else.
Exactly.
So I think that's a great selling point for checking the Employment for Seniors job board whenever possible.
Great. Okay. So let's go ahead and move and talk about job fit research.
So many mature workers are considering going beyond just doing what they've always done and looking for something a little different to do. And if you're not quite sure what that is, this is a great time to just take a step back and do some self-assessment. And there are a couple of good free and low-cost web-based tools out there that you can use, and we'll put links up to these on the website with this podcast. So the first one is called the MAPP, M-A-P-P Career Assessment. This is a private company. They ask you questions about things you do and don't like to do, and then at the end they give you some suggested career paths. I think that's great. Similarly, My Next Move, which is actually from the Department of Labor, similarly, they do an assessment and ask you questions about what you do and don't like to do, and then point you to career paths. And they are linked with the ONET online service. And there you can get very, very detailed descriptions of jobs in all kinds of industries. And they also point out if it's a, quotes, hot job or a green job, any number of things. And they tell you, what skills are necessary, what level of education, how many years of experience. So I think linking those two together is a really good thing.
Could you explain what ONET is? Because that's new to me too.
It's part of it's a Department of Labor funded program, and again goes through Job and Family Services.
Okay.
ONET is an acronym, and it's something network employment training or something like that.
Yeah.
But what they've tried to do is to again create one place within their websites for job seekers to go to. So on the local level, it's Ohio Means Jobs.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's also the Holland Code Career Test, assesses 6 different interest areas and matches them with careers that require those skill sets. So all of these are good. And I would like to put in one plug here for a non-web-based assessment that I find really helpful, and that is the Strengths Finder 2.0. That costs, I think the book costs like $19.95 or something on Amazon. And they give you a very detailed analysis of all of your strengths and also some suggestions about where does that fit in the world of work? Where are you likely to be most satisfied or least satisfied?
That's a fun test to take too.
Yes.
It is. And as a little aside for all of our listeners, Employment for Seniors clients have the ability to come and use our computer lab. So if you don't have internet access at home, and this takes a bit of time to do these tests, they can come to the lab here at Employment for Seniors and use our have internet connections.
Yes, that's great.
Without the potential of information overload, but if you take all these tests and you're doing all these assessments and such, how do you use this information and not get glassy-eyed going, well, this one says this, but this one says this? I mean, in the perfect world, you kind of hope they all kind of lead you the same direction, but how are you using this information?
Well, there are a number of different ways, and it also depends on where you are in the process. If you're just beginning, you want to start with that job fit research. And I think that once you have some idea of that, we have some great counselors here at Employment for Seniors. You can I would recommend making an appointment with them to sit down and say, okay, so I got this information from the Holland Code and my next mood. Let's talk through this a little bit more, and maybe you can help me see a bit more clearly where I'm going. So
it sounds like it needs a third party to kind of look at this holistically and then maybe pull some other questions from that person one-on-one as well.
Yes,
maybe.
I think that's a great thing. You need to, once you get an idea of where your job fit is, then starting to do that company research and looking for companies that are a good match, both in terms of, what you offer and what they need. And also, and I think this is really important, do your mission, vision, and values match their mission, vision, and values? I think that's really important. Then once you've done that, then you can start to research specific companies, specific job postings, and then you're actually starting into the application process. So, like I said before, these are all kind of cogs in a machine and, or different parts and pieces, and they may not all go to fit together right away, but I think some good discussion with someone in the career counseling field, one of the career counselors here at Employment for Seniors, or one of our other local agencies is probably a good place to start.
And, I think too that for listeners who have been to our podcast, you're going to hear me say over and over and over again, you can find a job. You can be a greeter at a retail store with little trouble, but are you going to be happy? And if you take the time to do a little bit of this research, ask questions, and again, we have lots of places that we can go to here in Columbus that are free resources. You're going to end up with an organization that you're going to be much happier with. It's going to last for a longer period of time. And that kind of goes right into my next question, Sharon. The other agencies that we have that do employment services.
Yes, well, one big one or two big ones are Goodwill Columbus and New Directions here in Columbus. Both of them offer free workshops on lots of different topics, and they can help you. They can help you sort through some of this information. If you bring it with them, their counselors are pretty well trained to help you sort through some of the information that you've gathered. And
They both have licensed career counselors on staff.
Yes.
At both of those agencies.
So they can be very helpful to you. Another local organization that I highly recommend, Truth in Advertising, I've been on their board, is Career Transition Institute. They charge a fee for their services, but it's very reasonable. And again, they have great workshops. They have great speakers. You can get one-on-one help from some of their volunteer folks, myself included. And I think that can be a great resource then for a person who is maybe struggling a little bit to get a direction and going in the right direction and figuring out exactly what it is they need to do and where the resources are to help them do that.
Well, thanks for joining us again. I think this is number 4, number 5, number 12.
Who knows?
I don't know.
Sharon comes and spends time with us
love
often.
Anytime. I very much enjoy these conversations.
Any last minute tips for listeners?
Yes, I would say my biggest tip that I want to make sure that the listeners hear is don't just jump into your job search and just kind of say, okay, I need a job. Let me get started here. Step back, be prepared, do your homework using the tools that we've discussed today. And if you're needing more information about other topics, check out the Employment Procedures podcast list. I can almost guarantee you that there's a podcast there that will address whatever question you have, whether it's resumes, interviewing, job search strategies, finding a job past 50, connecting with employers, networking, all of those things. We have all of those podcasts. So do your homework. Be a prepared job seeker.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Sharon.
Thanks.
Thank you.